Thank you so much, Tim. So let's have some questions now, Tim. We're going to try and do the audio for you there too, Cam. I know that you've been listening to that presentation too on the phone. Maybe, yeah, Tim, if you come up, we've got Cam.
Yep, I can hear you.
And maybe I can even go like this and relay the questions through if this doesn't work. Just wait for a second. Maybe if we can actually go to questions, if there are any questions for Tim, to kick this question session off. Any questions out there for Tim? Yeah, Trevor.
Tim, you've got 20% margin, and that's going to attract some speculative people, or they just throwing those figures there. Yeah, we are.
That one's on, yep. And maybe if you could repeat the question into a microphone.
Yeah, definitely. We hope for some level of speculation. That's what will provide liquidity to the market. So we've got some people who, might be sitting on Pitt Street and want exposure to the price of cattle in Australia. And so they might be there to add a bid or an offer to the market each day of the week. We want speculators in the market. Speculators can be viewed as a danger to the physical players, such as yourself, but with a product like this, because it cash settles against a physical index price, the speculators aren't really a danger of being able to move the price around. The price will always be linked to what the physical cattle are doing as per the index. The speculators will be there just to add liquidity. They can't push the price around in effect. So we want the speculators in.
So they'll actually hold the market. Speculators will hold the market.
Yeah, potentially. There's nothing stopping a speculator coming and offering a crazy price on the forwards 12 months out in front, but that requires someone else on the other side to trade it. So they can do whatever they want, but the market will dictate what a fair price forward is.
Okay, great. Yeah, just for the questions, if we could go into the microphone, then Cam will be able to hear it on this end. Any other questions for Cam or Tim now as we progress through? Yes, down the back.
I'll ask both of you, how do you see coordination with the dairy industry in the dairy beef market? Because it's very fractured and broken at the moment. And how as we as an industry coordinate genetics and the product to take advantage of these markets?
Cam, did you hear that question? Or maybe I can...
Could you just repeat
Yeah,
that for
so
me?
it's all about the coordination as an industry for the dairy beef market. How do we coordinate numbers? How do we coordinate genetics as a whole of industry around this whole supply chain?
Yeah, good question. I mean, that's one of the challenges. Can you guys hear me all right there? Is that
Yep, we sure can.
right there? Is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah, so one of the challenges is how do we organise those genetics? And really it starts back from the market. So what we know still has very strong market demand in the international space, which is where we will get the premium for this animal more than we will domestically killed, is, polled, black hide, and we need to be making sure that as the dairy farmer, when we're dealing with our genetics company and reseller, that we are individually working towards good fertility and calving needs for the dairy farmer, but we really need to be starting to make sure that we've got a major focus on the traits that tick off good 200, 400, 600 day EMA, intermuscular fat and carcass yield. They're going to be the key traits that we need to be putting into the beef on dairy supply chains so that they're profitable for everybody, and the calf price will reflect that, the rearing value, the background and the feedlot value. So to answer your question, maybe there was part of the question that was leaning towards, do we need a national index or do we need a dairy index? We're starting to see some dairy indexes come in the US that specifically look for a Holstein sire to go over the Holstein animal. I personally think that it's going to be a long way off us seeing a crossbred index created. I think in the meantime, we just need to be, I think in the meantime, as a dairy farm can be focusing on black hide, good growth rates at the 2, 4, 600 day, and your ribeye area, EMA. And you really want these size to be in the top kind of 10 to 15% for all of those traits. So typically what we don't see is the walking bulls. They're very, very poor in these traits. Therefore, they're going to be very unprofitable for everybody that takes them on from the backgrounder and the calfer forward up the supply chain.
Thank you. Thanks, Cam.
Yeah,
Cam.
I would just add as well is that the demand is there from the consumer for this product, and they're willing to price it out in front 12 months, 2 years. We just need to have the supply chain set up, which assures them that they're getting the product within the specification that they need.
Okay, thank you. Josh, down the back.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. It was fantastic. I was got a question around your graph there showed sex semen starting to rise across the country in use. Should we be looking at, the beef industry that already got really good genetics and looking at more embryo transfers and trying to use genetics that's already there rather than looking to try and change the dairy cow? We've already got the dairy cow and lots of genetics in that. Is there work being done in that space for embryo transfer, trying to get that more efficient, cheaper, all these sorts of things, so you actually get animals out that the consumer and the beef industry already want?
So Cam, I'm not sure if you got that. Embryo transfer versus sex semen?
So, yeah, great question. This space is definitely coming. I think that we're going to see the next kind of 3-year landscape IVF embryo transfer into the marketplace. I think that we're going to see this first being deployed in the regions that have smaller framed dams, because they really struggle to create a first cross animal that gets the carcass yield. No question about the Jersey cross, freeway cross in regards to sensory testing and meat quality, meat tenderness, but it's just the pure carcass yield that lets that animal down, that makes it very high risk and uneconomically viable in the longer term. So, great question. Embryo transfer definitely on the cards. I think as the industry, we're going to see that hit the marketplace sooner rather than later, and that allows us the ability to essentially turn on exactly what the market needs and deliver it in a very consistent manner, time in, time out. So I think, I think the technology will, I think we're going to see the technology evolve where we're superseded, beef semen usage, and we'll be putting eggs in place with full-blood animals that meet the market grid that the market's determined. And that is going to allow, it's going to be a kind of a real watershed moment for our industry when that happens in the near future, so that we can offer forward contracts because we know what we're going to be getting. Really, the only thing that's going to change then within the pricing model will be you'll be getting really the pricing model will be around the management of that animal. We know what the genetics can do. It's then up to the producer to be making sure they're overlaying the management system that can get that animal to do what it's genetically designed to do. And that's where you'll be able to, if you're a good producer, does a good job, you'll be rewarded for it.
Tim, did you want to add anything that you're right?
That's not really my
No,
wheelhouse.
I didn't think so. Any other questions out there? Yep, one here.
Yeah, Cam, your graph showed a growing differential between the steer price versus heifer price for the beef cross. Do you see that differential, there, that we come to a point that the market will dictate that as a dairy producer that on our beef cross animals that we need to use sexed beef semen as well as sexed dairy semen? So a sexed dairy heifer versus a beef sexed steer?
Yeah, absolutely. We're kind of saying, well, my first point would be is that none of these supply chains globally, and certainly when we look at the size that we've used in Australia across the board, all the companies, is there is no real maternal traits that we are focusing on. So one of the traps would be is we've seen a lot of F1 heifers go back into the restocker market for breeding herd rebuild. One of the underlying issues that I'm a little bit wary of is we're sending F1 animals back in there that really have no maternal trait focus. Plus, they're coming from the bottom end of our herd that typically have fertility issues to start with. That's kind of just a side note there. The split between steers and heifers is always going to be apparent. Now, I think if you looked at the mile of the feedlot, I pulled the grid last week, there was about $180 difference between a steer and a heifer, based as 450 kilos. So when you bring that back down through the chain, the market is still saying to us, we want more steers, albeit that the heifers do mature quicker. You need to treat them a little bit different because of the fat cover. And that gets us to the question around the breeding strategy. We're starting to see, and we're involved at the minute in using some sexed male beef semen in some work we're doing. But you still get into the trap of, you're now essentially starting to apply a lot more sexed semen right across your repro strategy. So then we have to start to really have a good look at the data and the inventory and the genetic strategy so that we're managing days in milk and days open, and that we're not starting to put the bottom end of our herd to beef male sexed, which is, roughly maybe work on about 10% less than the conventional beef conception rates. But certainly it is happening. We've started to see in the US major deployment of male sexed beef. But I go back to that last question around IVF. I think this will be a precursor that we will dabble into the beef male sex, but essentially we will be going to embryo transfer. If I was a betting man, that's where we'll end up in the next 3 to 5 years. But certainly male sex is an option. Premium for straws, though, you could be looking at 3 to 4 times the price of that male straw. That's if the correct sire can be also sexed as well. Not every sire that's suitable for beef on dairy can be sexed and produce male semen.
Thanks, Cam. Maybe one more question, maybe into Tim. If anyone's got any questions to Tim, I've got one. But if anyone else has a question into Tim as our last question. No, Tim, what's next? So what are the plans for StoneX? And maybe this is to you, Cam. So, how is this all going to come together for the farmers in the audience? And what's the next step?
So we're trying to build liquidity in our product so that every day there's a bidder and offer there as far forward as we can. And so that's about engaging as many aligned industries to the cattle industry as you can, whether that's livestock financiers, live exporters, speculators, as we talked about before. What that'll allow us to do is set up pricing models for consumers who are wanting to buy dairy beef from processors, so they can price their meat purchases 24 months out in front. And that'll cascade down and allow Cam's side of the supply chain to actually start producing the calves that the industry wants, because they've got certainty of price and certainty of margin.
Perfect. So, Tim, Cam, thank you so much for the presentations today. Thank you for the questions. Apologies for all the technical issues on your end, Cam, and hopefully everything's okay back there. And I wish you all the best, both of you, into the future. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.